is Not Sam Wrestling.
Introducing your host from New York, here is Sam Roberts.
With me now for the first time on Not Sam Wrestling, he's been making, I was going to say he's been making an impact, but the pun would be even too much for me. He's been talked about, though, quite a lot in the world of wrestling. His name is All Ego, Ethan Page. Ethan, what's the haps?
Not much. What's the haps even mean?
What's the haps? You know, it's like, it's been a while since somebody called me on that. I gotta be honest. Good for you.
Yeah, sorry to start this off like that. I mean, not much is happening, I guess.
That's
Just
it.
hanging out.
No, I'm glad. I literally, like, it was for a long time, everybody called me out on it, and it's been so long since anybody did it that I don't even remember what the response is supposed to be. But Ethan Page, you're here. So I saw you on Twitter. We got connected through, I guess, somebody who must be a listener of mine and a fan of yours. But you said that you wanted to start doing some podcasts and that you had avoided doing podcasts and interviews for quite a while. Why had you taken yourself off the podcast interview circuit?
Well, I didn't really make it public, which made it worse because people were messaging me and I was saying no, and I just felt like a jerk. But I had my own podcast, so I thought it would be like counterproductive to do other people's podcasts and then give away all of my, like, I guess, quote unquote scoops or thoughts. So why would they listen to mine? And at the time, there was a website that was paying us to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like I was like taking away from what they were paying me to do. So I avoided all podcasts in total.
I see. And then it got to the point where did they stop paying you, or did you realize that, well, maybe if I let some people know what's going on, I can inform them of my podcast and we can advertise and it's all good?
Oh, no, they stopped paying. So I was like, I was like, oh, okay, I guess I got some cool stuff I want to talk about. So I figured an easy tweet, and it backfired. I should not have done that. I got like almost 300 responses, and I know for a fact I'm not going to read them all. It's just too much. And ones with verified accounts would pop up sooner.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I saw yours, and I was like, oh, yeah, sure. I'd love to do it. That's how we got in contact. So,
yeah,
I mean,
man.
It was worth it, but my phone is still, like, going off because of that tweet.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't realize until you send something like that, and I definitely, when I started doing this, there were some wrestling podcasts out there, and even, like, to the point, I started doing this, like, 4.5 years ago or so, and it was almost like, oh, I don't know if the world needs another wrestling podcast, but now, I mean, forget about it. Every single fan has a wrestling podcast, and there's no way to discern which ones you should be doing or shouldn't be doing.
It's right, and there's like, I'm clicking most of the replies to even just take a look at the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and most of the podcasts people are suggesting are their own. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna avoid most of these,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna see what like actual listeners are suggesting the most and try and go off of that, because even still, like, I can't just go off of Twitter followers. Who knows if people actually listen? It was just a big mistake.
Well, it brought us together, so I guess all's well that ends well.
Exactly.
So, in creating the character of All Ego Ethan Page, because from the beginning of you being an independent wrestler, you've been all ego. Like, this has been how you've portrayed yourself from the start. How did this character come about? How did you know this is who you wanted the world to see you as when you stepped into the ring?
Oh man, like, there's so many versions of All Ego too, and like, it's almost now not even. There's no. I don't want to say there's no actual like definition of what All Ego is. It's kind of just like what point of my career I'm at. And at this point, people just hear All Ego and they just think of me. It's almost past like why I decided, because I'm not like, sometimes my character's not even egomaniac. It's just like, oh yeah, that's All Ego. Or like, that's The Rock. He's not actually made of stone. It's just a weird name that he has.
Right.
And you know what? We know him well enough that we're okay with it.
Right. Yeah, I see.
So I think that's where we're at now. But like the origin of the character, I was a huge fan of Chris Hero, and he called himself the Young Knockout Kid. And I was like, well, I'm not like a big strike guy, but like what characteristics do I have that I could like push to the front with my name? And I was like, oh, I love talking trash. So I was like, well, if I'm an egomaniac, I could be all ego instead of like part ego, part confidence, part whatever. It's just, I'm full ego. So my original moniker was going to be the all ego kid. And I was like, maybe I'll just scrap the second half of that and just stick with all ego.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Now, did you walk in real life? Did you walk into independent wrestling with an ego? Were you one of the guys? Because you always hear these horror stories about kids that start young, and it doesn't destroy your career, but it certainly slows things down in the beginning.
You nail on the head right there. Like, I thought I was the greatest wrestler of all time. The first day, I pretty much stopped going to training and wrestling school pretty early, like a couple weeks to a month. And then I just started traveling and doing things my own way. And I like a little bit of that hasn't really left me, but people react to it a little differently now because I've made a little bit of a name for myself. So it's like, he's just trying to do his own thing. But when I first started, that was not the reaction. It was like, oh, F this guy. I can't believe he's doing his own thing.
So do you look back on like when you see kids now that are doing what you did then, do you have sympathy for them in the sense you go, this is what I would have done? Or do you look at them like, who does this punk think he is?
No, honestly, I just do your own thing. Like I don't know if you saw recently, I had a very quote unquote controversial tweet about this whole handshake epidemic in professional wrestling. And I think there's too much stress put on young wrestlers because they're still trying to like figure themselves out. But there's these weird rules and guidelines that are like, I guess enforced, but like they're really like pushed on you when you get into wrestling. Like you have to do this, you have to say this, you have to stand like this and walk like this and accept bookings like this and show up at this time dressed like this and shake every person's hand. And it's like, that's a lot of stress for people getting into wrestling, especially when most of them are anywhere between 18 to 20 years old. Like they're not even mature enough for what people are expecting them to say or do or act or behave. So no, like I'm okay with people doing it their own way, and 9 times out of 10 it'll either spark a conversation and they'll actually like listen, and as long as you're showing them that you're interested in what they're doing instead of telling them just no flat out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a supporter of that.
I mean, it's interesting that the handshake thing is even still happening, not in the sense that it's interesting that people are still shaking hands, but it's interesting that that argument is still happening because, I mean, I remember at this point, it must have been 10 years ago, that was really the first time the Young Bucks became something that everybody was talking about because they were the tag team that wasn't shaking enough people's hands in the dressing room, and it was controversial then.
Right, and I was trying to explain it to my wife because she's like, "Man, why is everyone so upset about this?" And I was like, well, people agree with me because when, like, let's say you get extra work in WWE, you're essentially like nobody, and you're going to be nobody to people backstage. But because of the way you're brought into wrestling and these rules that have been placed on you, and it's like unwritten rules, like everyone is just supposed to understand that you shake everybody's hand. Now I'm like 20 years old backstage at WWE trying to like hunt down John Cena to shake his hand because if I don't shake his hand, oh God, there's going to be so much heat. My career is over. Can you believe I saw the Big Show and I didn't shake his hand? He's going to remember this forever. My career is over. And it's like, I'm just trying to get rid of that. Like,
yeah,
it's okay. It's okay for us to just make eye contact and nod or, just acknowledge human beings, because then you get the flip side and you get the assholes that just shake your hand because they're supposed to, but they're not actually looking in your direction. Like, they'll just come interrupt a conversation, just shake everyone's hand real fast and then take off. It's like, that's not personal. That's not an actual greeting. It's people are just doing it just to do it. And I'd rather people just be good human beings.
Like somehow the gesture of the physical handshake becomes more important than what the symbolism of the handshake is meant to do.
Bam. This is why you have a podcast.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Last professional broadcaster.
Yeah, you took my my ramble, and now it makes more sense. Yeah.
Word economy. That's something they teach you. But yeah, you also, I mean, I would imagine in a scenario like that, and I don't know, you could correct me, but like if you're looking around to shake John Cena's hand, you may have it ingrained in your head because someone told you you have to make sure you shake everybody's hand, and then you're looking around and you're trying to find John Cena, and if somebody says, hey, where are you going? And you go, I'm trying to find John Cena to shake his hand, then they look at you going, who do you think you are? What do you mean you're trying to find John Cena? You think he's got time to hang out with you? Are you trying to cozy up to John Cena on your first night here?
Yeah, it's like the whole thing just lacks common sense, I think.
Yeah, totally. And realistically, I think that most people are thinking along the same lines of you. As long as you're respectful and you're cool, and I think most people feel that way, right? Most people,
yeah.
as long as they don't feel specifically disrespected, they're not sitting there at the end of the show worried about which extra shook whose hand and was the grip the right grip, and it's not. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a thing.
It's true. That's the way I think too, and like I even go out of my way to make sure that I say hi to the crew or just people helping set up the ring. Like just a simple hello, just acknowledging the fact that you appreciate that they're there and making sure the show is actually happening.
Right.
I think that's way more important than forcefully shaking everybody's hand.
Well, yeah, just acknowledge, like you said, acknowledging the people for being people. Like, hey, you said hi to me, I say hi to you, and that's how humans exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like it should be all that controversial, to tell you the truth.
I know.
So, I mean, but this is the way you've made a lot of your bones. This is the way that you've created a lot of attention for yourself, is by being slightly controversial, is by kind of living this all ego character. Now, do you find that even in the world of wrestling, where the people who should be the smartest people, which are the wrestlers in the locker room that are aware of the show that they're putting on, do they start to buy into your character? They hear your name is All Ego Ethan Page. Maybe they haven't met you yet, and they look at you sideways when you come in because they're like, who does this guy think he is? What is he, All Ego? And you're like, it's my wrestling name. It's what we do here.
100%. And 9 times out of 10, I'm not the one that hears it. It's like a friend of mine or my tag partner, Josh Alexander, is like, hey, can you believe that this guy asked me if you're actually like this?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so weird. But yeah.
And you're going, yeah. Well, what do you think you're in Impact now? Obviously, everybody knows this. But what do you think your kind of breakout moment was, where it was like you're either in front of the most eyes or kind of the space you were in where people really started to become aware of you? Was it when you started doing stuff in Ring of Honor? Was it when you showed up in PWG?
Honestly, I think it's like a collaboration of all things. Like, it's been a very slow build for me, mostly because I have been kind of doing it my own way and like not really like finding what's popular and trying to fit in with that. Mm-hmm. And I would say Ring of Honor did a lot for us. And then PWG was good for the tag team, but then my solo run in Evolve really opened a lot of eyes, and then quitting Evolve opened a lot of eyes, and now with Impact, I'm kind of just now finding my footing with the tag team, where I think I was just floundering before, but the floundering is what actually started me to push for the vlog, because I felt like they weren't giving me enough time to talk on TV, and I figured I would just do it myself and hope that their social media shares it to their audience, and that's the way it's been working. So, and you feel like the vlog is what, the fact that you took matters into your own hands, started vlogging, started familiarizing people with who you are, with your character, with everything, that and the fact that Impact shared it, that is what put you where you needed to be? Yeah, and I know for a fact it's why they let me talk more on television too. Huh. So you showed them, I can talk like this on my computer. You could have this on your TV show. Pretty much. And they were like, oh, yeah, you're right. We can do this. We should. We're going to. Well, that's great. And then, but you still keep vlogging, obviously. Yeah, I've really been enjoying it, and just trying to show a side of wrestling that people don't actually get to see. And I feel like a lot of the wrestling vlogs or like YouTube shows are very like skit based, mm-hmm. and like There's a lot of like collaboration with other wrestlers, but I would say like 90% of it is like, hey, it'd be funny if we did this or said this or made this like, the theme of the whatever. Whereas I'm actually just trying to capture what naturally happens backstage.
Right.
So like if there's a scene with Rich Swann and Zach Wentz beatboxing, it's not because I pulled my camera out and was like, hey guys, can you entertain it's like, no, they were just genuinely doing that backstage. And then I pulled my camera out. So like, I'm just trying to capture what's actually happening and like whatever travel woes I'm dealing with, or maybe I get upgraded to first class. I want to talk about that and be like, hey, this doesn't happen all the time. Look how cool this is.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you talked about, the handshake culture and the locker room culture and everything. Are there guys that don't like the fact that you're going to take out a video camera and start vlogging behind the scenes, or do you really just do it with friends and people that trust you?
I lean towards friends and people that I know will trust me, and I've been doing it long enough now that people like haven't really put anything out that I guess pulls the curtain back too much.
Mm-hmm.
And there are characters that I know, like a Killer Cross. What he portrays on TV, he portrays on social media. So I'm not going to be the one that like exposes that in my vlog, or like same with Sue Young.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to catch her without her makeup on or make her talk. I respect the work that people put into their characters, and I'm not going to be the one to ruin that. But Tommy Dreamer definitely thinks I'm going to get a lot of heat from my vlog eventually. Yeah, he's always bugging me every time I pull my camera out and go, oh, here we go. Ethan Page vlogging all of our secrets.
Well, yeah, I mean, Tommy Dreamer's a guy that's lived through all of it. I'm sure he's looking at you as this young dude who's, videotaping what's going on in the locker room with the expressed purpose of showing it to the public and going, what the hell is going on? This doesn't happen.
Yeah, but then then I'm also the guy that if Space Monkey doesn't have his mask on, and I've already uploaded the vlog to YouTube, now I have to delete it, re-edit it, repost it, because I don't want that to like I go out of my way to make sure that this doesn't affect anybody in wrestling in a negative way.
Right. I mean, yeah, and that's the whole purpose of it, right? I mean, if it starts
For
affecting
sure.
people negatively, it's a total waste of your time anyway. So I watched a short documentary that you did 3 years ago. It was like just this 10-minute thing on YouTube. And they asked you 3 years ago, 5 years from now, where do you see yourself? And you said WWE, no doubt about it. I absolutely see myself in WWE. Has your mind changed in that perspective? Do you feel like the wrestling world has opened up? What's different between now and 3 years ago?
Yeah, I think it's way different. I wasn't engaged then. I wasn't married then. I think I was just dating my wife at the time. Didn't have any kids. Those all have changed now, the way my mindset is. I'm a lot less likely to just throw away my family life or my home to move somewhere for wrestling. I don't think I'm willing to do that anymore, to be honest.
Because you want your family, you want your immediate family to be near your extended family.
Yeah, and we have a home now. We've built a home. No boss or company will ever come first, or for any amount of money. Like we have everything we need here. As long as I can continue to have the life that I have now, I'm happy. And I know like options like AEW are around where they're not making people move and uproot their families to get told how to become wrestlers again. So like I'm okay with what I have, and I know there's options once my Impact contract runs out, or I just stay with Impact and I'm having fun and enjoying myself there and making a living. So like life is good.
Was seeing what was going on with AEW, was that any kind of a hiccup in terms of figuring out what you were doing with Impact? I mean, you were part of All In. Obviously, those guys are also aware of you. Did you think to yourself, well, if I sign this Impact contract, whenever is flushing out with those guys, I'll kind of be off the market for them? Was that anything that was a hindrance in you making your final decision?
I mean, there was obviously like the thought in the back of my mind, because I know Cody's only a text away. He's a friend of mine, but my also thought is like I'm Canadian, so my paperwork and my visa is numero uno to legally be able to work in America. So that is always going to be the first thing that's weighing on the back of my mind, and with decision making and stuff like that.
Right.
So and I also signed with Impact before any AEW stuff was even like starting to be talked about. Yeah, this was like pre Tony Khan. Yeah, I was already locked in before that.
Right. But also, in terms of, you're saying in terms of visa and paperwork, you have to be actively working to keep that paperwork alive. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And I need a contract with a company sponsoring me to be able to have the paperwork.
I see.
So without being signed to Impact for whatever the duration of the contract is, there is no option of getting a visa. So I need to be locked in with someone to have the paperwork. Yeah.
And what are the restrictions with Impact now? Are you allowed to work independently as long as it's not on television? Are you allowed to? What are the ramifications or whatever?
It's pretty much that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I can't just show up on Ring of Honor TV or go do WWE as an extra. Like that's all. No chance.
Right, which I understand. They're TV guys or they're TV guys. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. And they allow me to book out my own independence, so they're not the ones doing it, which I would rather. Like I've already built up a relationship with a lot of these companies, and yeah, it's a lot easier for me to just deal with them myself.
Yeah, no, I that makes sense. Who were your influences growing up?
Oh, my favorites: The Rock, Macho Man, Billy Gunn, Razor Ramon. I would say those four.
So you grow up a super wrestling fan and obviously a WWE fan. Did you ever think you would get to a place where you're married, you have a family, and all of a sudden something is taking priority over wrestling? When you started wrestling, I'm assuming you must have been of the mindset of, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be the man, and my dream is to be in WWE and this and that. I would think that if you had told you back then, well, you're going to get married and have a kid, and you're not going to want to leave Canada, and some things are more important, you would have scoffed at that.
Oh, even when I first started dating my wife, I was telling her, like, hey, we're going to have to move to Florida eventually because I know for a fact I'm going to WWE. And she was like, okay, I understand. This is your dream. And then once the actual offer for the tryout came up, she's like, all right, well, when are you going to go? And I was like, I can't do that to you. Like, you're 8 months pregnant. We're going to have the baby like a month after this tryout. If they sign you, then we're going to have to move. None of my family's going to move to Florida. No one's going to help you with the kid. So we turned that down and we went with Impact. And then I ended up going to Japan for 5 weeks when my kid was 2 weeks old. So it ended up being the complete opposite. I joke about this with my friends all the time.
Yeah.
Because just last week we filmed with Impact, and it was me and my tag partner against Sabu and RVD.
Right.
And Sabu does like a flipping leg drop, lands directly on the back of my head. 100% concussion, and I get to the back and I'm just miserable. And my buddy's like, man, you just wrestled Sabu and RVD, aren't you happy? And I go, no, I'm not. but 13-year-old me is freaking out.
Right
29-year-old dad me is pissed.
yeah I'm miserable right now. The last place in the world I want to be is the ECW arena, but I wish I could tell my 13-year-old self that Sabu just laid me out in the ECW arena.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
That is great, because usually you just hear the one side of it, right? Like, oh my God, the child version of me would be freaking out right now. You don't hear the reminder of, yeah, but the adult version of me is in absolute misery.
Right, but I'm okay with being happy with both. Like I understand the realities of it, and I always want to remind myself, like, hey, it's okay to smell the roses and be happy about this.
So when you're there, right? Because obviously you grow up with Sabu and RVD being these larger than life characters. I was just a massive ECW fan. When you're in the ring and you're looking back at RVD and Sabu, and they look like RVD and Sabu, do you take a moment in the ring while it's all going on to be like, this is so cool, this is really happening, or are you so locked in that it doesn't occur?
No, it happens, and it's good that these shows aren't live because they can actually edit it out or cut to a different camera. Because like I will audibly laugh out loud or smile because like my character, I can get away with stuff like that, like where I just have like random emotions and just joke around.
Mm-hmm.
But my partner Josh Alexander has to be serious, so I'm going out of my way to be like, man, how hilarious is this? Look at Rob Van Dam do his thumb thing over there, and then I just like turn to Josh, and he's got to keep a straight face and be like angry.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, like I'm okay with having those moments. Like I wrestled Billy Gunn recently, and like even he was joking afterwards, saying like, I'm saying jokes, you're a heel, but you're sitting over in their corner laughing, and he's like, I like that. Bad people get to laugh at jokes too, and I was like, yeah, it's true. Like I should be able to enjoy the moment. And he's like, yeah, you can, and it's good that you are.
So, are you now in the place because I would think that the vision that you had for what your career would look like has altered tremendously because you're making decisions now that you never would have made even 5 or 6 years ago. Do you have visions for what the career is going to look like, for what your goals are going forward, or is this just, hey man, I'm having a good time in Impact, I'm having a good time on the independents, we're going to see what happens tomorrow, and that's it?
Yeah, I have goals. I wouldn't say they're really like company based.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I've just completely switched to just putting as much into myself as I can,
Mm-hmm.
so that wherever I end up, there's value. So if I stay with Impact, they could be like, yeah, he's worth keeping because look at all the stuff he does, like extracurricular stuff where he has his own blog or he has his own podcast or he's producing his own merchandise, and like I can design and like film my own videos and stuff. So yeah, there's value in that. Or once I leave Impact, I don't need someone to sign a contract with. I just have my own, I guess, audience that I can bring to these companies that are willing to fly me out and work with them. Yeah, I think that's it really. And like now I'm working with IWTV. They're coming out with a new app soon,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm trying to push that as best as I can, so that once my contract's up with Impact, maybe I don't need to go somewhere. Maybe I could just focus on being the big fish in the small pond of the independents, and trying to suck up as much money of that as I can. Just giving myself options and being as valuable to pro wrestling as possible is my number one thing.
So you've talked before about your influences in terms of your character being influenced, and they don't all come from wrestling, which I think is really good. I love hearing when guys, when they're figuring out their character, obviously they're going to draw from the people they grew up watching. In this era, everybody that's wrestling, for the most part, was a wrestling fan and has certain inspirations. But at the same time, I think that it's valuable when people can draw from stuff that's not wrestling and put it into their character. You were talking about what a massive Kanye West fan you are or were at the time that you were talking about this, and how that was part of the ego that you put into your character. Number one, are you still a Kanye West fan? Number two, do you still think that this thing that he does, where he gets everybody all riled up, do you still think that it's an act?
Yeah, so I'm still a fan.
Yeah.
And I still listen to his music. His interviews have gotten way crazier since I said that in that YouTube video.
Yeah.
I still think that he's smart in a sense of he's constantly creating like, I guess, buzz about him, whether it's like negative or positive. People are constantly talking about him, and I don't think he'll ever leave the tabloids or the news sites. So I think that that's good in a sense. I don't think that in the climate of like 2019, the stuff that he does will always get a positive reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm a little bit more, I guess, like cautious with the way I like. With wrestling, people know that whatever I portray online or in character might not 100% be me.
You have control over it.
Yeah, and it could be a character that I'm playing.
Right.
With him, there is no like. They're like, oh, that's Kanye West.
Right. Yeah. So
yeah.
I mean, I'm a big Kanye West fan. I have been forever. I think that he's an artistic genius. At the same time, I think that he's tremendously unstable. I don't think that his flying off the handle is an act. I think it's his brain doing what his brain does. So I don't think that I don't think that he's as calculated as some people think he is. But I do.
I don't either.
Yeah, but
especially the more hectic my life gets and the more like demanding this job gets,
mhm.
I can even if it's on 0.01%, I understand a little bit more of how he could just fly off the handle and go crazy.
Right. Yeah, and you kind of understand why when everybody is paying attention to every word, every move, everything that you do is like a grand statement. And maybe mentally, you've got some stuff that needs to be checked going in. You know, you might end up coming across pretty unstable.
Well, man, you got to think like if he went on his phone right now
Hmm.
and tweeted whatever he wants, like literally anything, there's going to be millions of people that respond to it, either negative or positive. Then he has to put his phone away, and his wife tells him to take the garbage out. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that in itself is like,
Yeah. Do you know who I am?
try dealing with that. Like that's a mind fuck in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever do that when you get home after a set of TV tapings or a big show or whatever it is, and your wife is like, "Hey, I need you to take the garbage out." Do you go, "Do you have any idea what I just did?"
But yeah, as a joke,
Mhm.
yeah, of course. But she'll be like, "Hey, could you do this?" I'll be like, "Do you know how many T-shirts I sold this weekend?" And she'll be like, "Oh my god!" And then yeah, I'll go do it.
And then you go do it. Yeah, I guess really it wasn't an ask; it was a tell. Yeah, it wasn't.
pretty much.
It wasn't a request. Now, has your wife, because she's kind of been with you on this journey, when the journey starts to change, like you said, and she goes, "Okay, we're moving to Florida," and you go, "Actually, we're not moving to Florida," is she concerned? Does she feel guilty? Is she like, this is really odd because I thought this was your dream and now it looks different? Or is she just saying, okay, well, whatever you say, let's do it?
Man, you're like really good at this.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, most of the time it's what got you into wrestling, who's your favorite wrestler, what's your dream match. This is great. Like, yeah, we sit and talk. Like, we don't have family meetings. It's just us two
Right.
and our 1-year-old. But like, we'll actually sit and discuss like what the best options are for everybody. And I think that's why we're so happy and like our marriage is doing so well. Is like we just keep it as open and as honest as possible. And like obviously whatever I decide affects them and whatever she decides affects everybody. So yeah, like that's the way we like to keep it at least.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just think it's interesting. You know, I've been with the same person for like 14 years now. And when we met, I had the same aspirations that I do now. I'm the same person, except when you're not there, your goals look different. When you get to a certain place, you realize what your goals actually are, and maybe you have to adjust on the fly.
Right. And
Right.
like right now we're dealing with my wife just lost her job. So she worked there for about 9 years and it was a great income. And because of that job, I was able to quit my job when we got married and moved in together and just solely focus on wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, it wasn't making enough money that's the only job we could have. So now when she's lost her job, we're like, well, what do we do now? And we crunch the numbers and I'll just be wrestling 100%. And that's the income for our home. So it was crazy for us to go from one extreme to the opposite, but now we're okay. So like everything changes over time. And as long as we're like open and honest and working together, it'll be fine. So we don't really stress about that kind of stuff.
Isn't it amazing, though? I mean, that in and of itself, you wouldn't think to make that a goal, but that in and of itself, to know that not only can you support yourself wrestling, but you can support your family. You can now not only take over what you used to have to do on the side with a regular job, you can now do full time and support not only the income that you were making with your regular job, but also take over the income that your wife was bringing in. That's the dream, right? To support your family wrestling, and you're doing it. That's the dream.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to stop buying as many toys, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
What do you have to stop buying? Like, what do you realize? Okay, this collection is gonna have to suffer.
Oh, more or less all of it, and like I'm okay with it because now I like get freebies all the time from like Hasbro. So I don't know how I got that hookup,
Uh-huh.
but I'm loving it. So slowly been buying less anyways,
Yeah.
and I just finished my like Holy Grail collection, I guess. So that's done.
What is the
so I don't
Holy
really
Grail
have to-
collection?
So for me, it was the Batman the Animated Series cartoon figures, but like the original Kenner ones in the package.
Do you
And
know?
I just
Did you get them from Zombie Sailor on Instagram?
so yes, but, I got the last two I needed for the collection. I needed to rebuy a Two-Face because my package was a little messed up, and then he had the motorcycle that you like pull back and then let go and it keeps going. I had that as a kid, but I have the entire collection of what I owned as a child in the package on the wall, so I'm done. He hooked me up with the last two I needed.
Is there anything worse than having a conversation about finances with your wife and going like, okay, I think we can squeeze here. I think we can make this work. And then the mailman comes and drops off your latest package of toys. And you're like, humana.
Oh, man. That literally happened this week because Zombie Sailor just had that sale with the Batman animated series stuff. And I was like, oh, she still had her job at the time because it takes weeks to get packages from America to Canada.
Sure.
So I ordered them and then they come in yesterday. She's like, what is that? I'm like, oh, toys that I ordered from a while ago. Oh God. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go put those downstairs.
Yeah, never mind. Oh no, this guy sent them to me. I met him on Instagram. He just sent them to me. I don't know. I don't know. Don't worry about it.
Gifts, they were free.
Yeah, that's what happens in my household when we're like, okay, we got 2 kids now. We're gonna do this. We're gonna move this here, and everything should be fine. And then 6 pairs of sneakers shows up on the front porch, and you're like, yeah. I didn't think we were talking about these. These don't worry about these. This is my business.
Yeah, it's the truth. But like now, like I'll do toy shows and sell. Like I'll buy things to specifically sell it and make a profit off of it, and then that's the money that I'll use to actually buy toys.
How do you? Yeah, I mean that's the way to do it. I got a buddy who his wife doesn't know about the PayPal account. So he just sells stuff on eBay, lets the PayPal account get full, and then he can buy whatever he wants, and that section of the finances is just for him.
Right. Yeah, I think that's like fair.
Right.
If they end up like if tough times come and they need to pull from the PayPal, then hey, magically, hey babe, look what I have in this account that you did not know about.
It's just a surprise now. It's just a treat.
Yeah. It's a bonus.
Yeah. So how do you sell? Do you sell on eBay or do you try to find fans or how do you do it?
I just do it at local toy shows. I just try and keep it as like low key as possible. I rent a table. I'm there myself. And fans will come and they'll be like, "Hey, wait, are you Ethan Page? Can I get a picture?" I'm just like, yeah. You want to buy with this WWF Hasbro figure though?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, do you have like a little section of gimmicks just in case some fans show up and you can move some shirts too?
I did that the first time, but then actual fans came just for that. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. I just want to sell the toys. So now I just solely like just a regular guy selling his toys.
Mm-hmm. You're just a weekend warrior.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not fully committed to the toy game, just on the weekends, once a month.
Do you collect wrestling figures too?
I used to. I'm fully out of the wrestling figure game unless something really catches my eye. I'm fully out.
Now, did you get out because you were like, well, I'm in the business now. It's kind of weird for me to kind of still be on this line between fan and worker, and I can't. It's not there for me anymore. Let me just stick to the non-wrestling stuff for my hobby.
No, I think it was when they changed over to the Mattel from the Jacks.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm fully on board with these WWE Elites.
Yeah.
But then they started coming out with so many.
Yeah.
I just couldn't keep up. And then once I started buying the Marvel Legends, that completely took over the room. I've got over 110, 120 in package on the wall, and that just covered everything. And now the wrestling section is like very, very small. That's all. Just something else took its place.
Yeah, and you end up getting rid of those, like selling them.
The wrestling toys, yeah.
Yeah. Man, wow. I think that we're all rooting for your success now, specifically because we're invested not only in your family, but in your toy collection.
Yeah, thanks. Please. I have a PO box. So if you want to send me anything, so I don't have to buy it myself, I'll love you forever.
And where can people find the PO box information?
And on any one of my vlogs, if you go to my YouTube page, honestly, just search Ethan Page vlog, and all the information's on the end of any of those videos.
Okay. Now, do you have a dream match or anything to get back to the wrestling podcast questions? Do you have a dream match or anything specific that you're going, okay, well, I've been in the ring with Rob Van Dam and Sabu now. I don't know what more I could possibly ask for, but this is something I'd really like to do.
If I could do anything with The Rock, I don't care if it's like a backstage segment. I don't care if I'm just like an extra and he gives me a rock bottom and I'm just like in a security t-shirt. Literally anything. I almost met him when I was an extra, but he shut the door in my face. So I'm really trying to scratch that memory off and just create a new one.
You know why he shut the door in your face?
Because it was his locker room, not mine.
It's because you didn't find him and shake his hand.
That's what I was trying to
do. And by the way, not for nothing, but if you want to eventually do something with The Rock, you might have to move your family to Florida. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe. Or like I'm just, hoping that I can just keep, going to the beat of my own drum, and they're like, we like this guy. Let's not make him move. We could just keep him where he's at.
You get that AJ Styles gig?
Yeah, right? I mean, if someone has already been able to do it, I feel like the option should be there for others. You just got to make yourself valuable enough to make it happen.
Right. And if anybody can do it, it's all ego, right?
Yeah, there you go. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't see why not. Well, man, I'm glad you've made your return to podcasting and doing podcasting. We had the opportunity to talk to you here on Not Sam Wrestling. Where can people find you? The vlogs, of course, you're at Official Ego on Twitter. But where can people find your vlogs, where they can find your P.O. box, where they can send you stuff, the whole deal?
Yeah, so most importantly, the reason I actually went on Twitter and was like, hey, guys, I want to talk to people on podcasts is because I'm starting to work with a company called independentwrestling.tv.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned it earlier that they have an app coming out. It's actually going to be released within a month on Android and iPhone. And they really want to start pushing the fact that they're working with so many companies and being able to integrate independent wrestling. And I signed on because I didn't want to be labeled solely an Impact Wrestling star. I still want to be able to use whatever name value or fan base that I've built up and bring awareness to independent wrestling. Because like I have my own promotion in Canada called Alpha One Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And we work with IWTV as well as bigger companies like Black Label Pro, Freelance, Shakara, Beyond Wrestling, and they do weekly live TV as well. So like I'm really, really, really trying to push this app as best as I can. It just because where are these stars coming from? Like you're seeing literally everybody getting signed right now.
Yeah,
everybody. Like there's no one. I don't want to say there's no one left because there's always going to be guys to fill that void. But what's the best way to watch them? And that's IWTV. And I have a promo code for you to get 20 days free if you want to try it out. It's Alpha One, ALPHA, and the number one. And there's no like catch or anything. If you don't like it, you can cancel it. It doesn't cost you anything. You have 20 days to try it out.
That's great.
Last year they actually streamed more live events than the WWE Network.
Wow, because they're on board with so many different companies.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I would recommend everybody going to check that out. I feel like any place you can find good programming, especially I really do feel like with AEW becoming what AEW is going to become and WWE already being what WWE is, that I think, especially because of AEW, independent wrestling is going to have to kind of find itself. I feel like, the Elite was doing a lot to push independent wrestling along over the last couple of years. And now that they're off the scene, we have to figure out what independent wrestling looks like in 2019 and forward, and who the stars are, and how we see these stars, and everything involved. And I think the fact that we have the technology to, cost effectively share this stuff with wrestling fans all around the world just on their phones is amazing. And I feel like it's something that wrestling fans should support. So go and check out independentwrestling.tv.
Yeah, thanks, man. And like I think too, like all of the hottest independent stars are either now in AEW or WWE, and even the AEW guys. I don't think they're going to be able to do independence for much longer, the way it seems at least. So yeah, who are the guys that are going to be main eventing these high-profile independent matches now that literally everybody is gone?
Yeah.
So that's why another reason why I didn't want to solely be branded as an Impact wrestler is because I don't want people to question the fact that if they can contact Ethan Page and have him come do one of their events.
Right. And the answer is yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You want me there? I'll be there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, man. It's been great talking to you and great getting to know you. And I'm excited for your future.
Thanks. I'm excited to listen to your podcast because you're a great interview and you asked me things that I actually want to talk about, which is very hard to come by, man.
Well, very good. And I hope I didn't spoil it for everybody else.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, dude.